In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I made the biggest, most expensive, most difficult short film I ever made, Will the Machine. It got 1 million views in its first month online. Right now it's sitting at over 3 million views. I'm going to be breaking down everything from writing it, financing it, shooting it, post-production, release strategy, and one of the craziest things that ever happened in my entire life that happened right after we finished shooting that movie. So get comfy. First off, why make this expensive short film? Well, me and my writing and producing partner, Chris, who also ended up being the lead actor in Will the Machine, we've been scrappy filmmakers since we were kids, making a lot of low budget, quicker turnaround films, and we were kind of stagnant in our film careers. Nothing was happening, so we decided, let's flip the script. Let's spend a lot of time and money on one project and see what happens there. So this would be our attempt to open doors to film festivals and show that we could make films on a more professional level. Writing. So we tossed around a few ideas, and then we realized, oh, Will the Machine is a character from a feature that we already wrote. He's the antagonist. We could rip him out and make an interesting character study out of him. Plus, Chris was actually a D1 football player in real life, so we knew we could bring some authenticity to the character, to the script. The character was kind of an amalgamation of a few different famous athletes like Mike Tyson, Michael Jordan, but mainly it was Hall of Fame running back Herschel Walker's childhood as a kid who was bullied a lot, transformed himself into this alter ego, and became a Hall of Fame running back in the process. We went through 17 drafts before settling on our shooting script, getting feedback from friends and collaborators the whole way through. Building the team. So once we had the script, we were working through more drafts, we started adding people on. The first people we linked up with was a freelance editing client of mine. It was a small production company, and they'd actually done a couple of award-winning short films recently, so I knew their connections and experience would be invaluable throughout the process. Chris and I's original plan was to make the short right here in Los Angeles, and we were only going to spend about $8 grand on it. But once we started collaborating with these producers and talking to them about an idea we had to shoot the film in our hometown of Richmond, Virginia, which was the former capital of the Confederacy, and intertwining the city's history with the main character's story, and then the tragedy in nearby Charlottesville happened with that Unite the Right rally, it became clear that we could really elevate this project and story, make it something much more powerful by going back home, filming it in our hometown. So once we got excited about that, the budget went a lot higher, but I'll get into financing in a little bit. Next on board was our director of photography, Jeff Tomcho, who had worked on a web series I directed with. He contributed a ton of experience, a ton of gear, a lot of extra hours, and helped to the point that he became a co-producer on the project and really elevated the whole thing. Here he is doing some camera tests with Chris in Los Angeles for all the running sequences that were going to be in the movie. After that, we needed our second lead actor. So our old roommate, Ellis, happened to know Denzel Whitaker, who we'd seen in movies like Bad Lieutenant, Training Day, Black Panther. So we sent him the script, and after a few long talks about the project and the story, he came on board, which added a ton of momentum to the project and the team we were building. At this point, Chris and I had to do a scouting trip in Richmond to find all the locations we were going to use. And while we were down there, we stopped at the Virginia Film Office and got a ton of help from their staff in terms of finding locations, finding people to help us out, how the permitting process was going to work. Spoiler alert, there were no permits needed. Gotta love filming in Virginia. They also gave me this big book of film production contacts, which I used along with Google and personal recommendations to fill out the rest of our crew person by person. Financing. So we budgeted the film to be a little over $20,000, and we raised that money through a few different means. I put in $6,000 up front that I'd saved from editing jobs. We did a Kickstarter, and we raised $6 grand through that. Chris and I took out a loan through lendingclub.com, I believe, for $10K. And then later in post-production, Chris chipped in a few $1,000s to cover some additional expenses that we ran into. There's a lot to get into here. I mean, that Kickstarter campaign was a huge project in and of itself. So if you want more details about how we financed it or about financing short films in general, then drop a comment. Shooting. 6 months after we started writing the film, myself, Chris, and Jeff, our director of photography, flew out to Richmond with an insane amount of equipment, and we're ready to start shooting the movie. We stayed at my parents' house to save money, and Denzel flew out a couple days later, and that was the entire LA team that was on set. Everybody else was a local hire. We had scheduled a 5-day shoot out there, and one regret I have is that I should have brought on really experienced AD or producer on set. So this meant I was just managing way more details than I probably should have been as the director of the film. And I'd come home from shooting and I'd have to do the call sheets for the next day. For the call sheets, I actually made maps in Photoshop showing everybody where to park, where we were going to be filming. We just didn't have time or money to waste on set. And the beauty of filming in Richmond is they don't require location permits, so we had free reign over all of our exterior locations as long as we didn't block any roads roads or sidewalks. We even strapped a camera to a car and filmed Chris running down a road for a whole morning, and the police couldn't have cared less. This kind of thing would have been absolutely impossible to do in Los Angeles for our budget. For the main location where the races take place in the film, we had found a couple of flashy options that overlooked the city, but ultimately we thought they were too unrealistic. So the little park we settled on had the perfect level of seclusion while keeping some of the grit and character of the city in the background. So we shot for 2 days at that park. On the first day, we ended up running really behind schedule and really dug ourselves into a hole for day 2 where we were gonna have to make up all these extra shots. What I ended up doing was staying up that entire night, making a very, very detailed shot list for day 2 at that location, and I had time deadlines for each shot so I would know as the day went on if we were falling even a few minutes behind schedule. So we flew through our shots on day 2, got everything we needed. Now we were gonna film the high school weight room scenes at me and Chris's old high school, but like a week before we were gonna shoot, the principal and athletic director just pulled that location from under our feet. Really put us in a bad spot. We couldn't find a replacement location in Richmond in time, so we decided we were gonna have to do that as a pickup in Los Angeles at a later date. But we used that extra day in our schedule to shoot some stuff at our friend Alice's mom's house and got some stuff of Will at home by himself. And I'm so glad we did. We'd actually cut the idea of showing Will at home from earlier drafts of the script, but seeing the final short film now, I think it's pretty crucial that you see a little taste of what his home life is like. So we wrapped, and then the next day, one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me happened. Chris, Jeff, and I are at the Richmond Airport Applebee's having a celebratory margarita, as you do, and Chris looks at me and he says, "I think that's Herschel Walker." And I look over, and literally 2 feet next to us is Herschel Walker, the guy that Chris started writing about 4 years before, that we spent years developing this feature film script around and molded into this new Will the Machine character. The guy that inspired the whole project is right there. The day after we finished shooting this film, we went up to him, talked to him, shook his hand, told him that we just made a short film that was kind of inspired by him. He was really gracious about it all, but truly one of the most insane coincidences of my life, kind of rocked my whole worldview, if I'm gonna be honest, as a lifelong skeptic. And at the very least, I figured, well, this has to be a good omen for the film. Post. So I made an assembly edit of the film, minus the weight room scene that we hadn't gotten a chance to film yet, and it was clocking in at over 20 minutes long. And it was a much longer process than usual to find the story in the film. We eventually realized that we were giving the audience too much information, trying to make them empathize and sympathize with Will too much. We decided Will's kind of an asshole, let's let him be the asshole and make it the audience's job to figure out why he's an asshole. And once we started thinking about the film that way, it became much easier to make decisions and edit. We were able to tighten up the film to around 13.5 minutes. Pickups. You can check out my video about finding film locations for a lot more detail about how we got the high school weight room location for the pickup shoot. It was an absolute nightmare and took forever, but once we did, we had a 1.5 day pickup shoot out here in Los Angeles, and then the movie was fully in the can. Finishing post. Things really got exciting because we really got to bring in some top tier talent to help finish and polish up this movie. Through our DP, we got the colorist of The Walking Dead to give the film a world-class color grade for free. And then through our production company producers, we got an amazing score from a very talented composer for a super bargain rate. Same for the guy that made our key art and our movie poster. I tracked down a sound mixer online. He gave us a 5.1 surround mix and a stereo mix, so it would sound great on a movie theater, at film festival, or on a laptop at home. Then I edited the trailer, and I got a DCP or digital cinema package made, which some festivals require to project the movie in a theater. And then that was it. The movie was completely done. The total time from starting to write the film to finishing that DCP was 1 year and 8 months, which is kind of crazy. But keep in mind that we were in really no rush with post-production, so I really took my time there. I was doing it in between paid editing jobs. So at this point, we started submitting it to film festivals, and if you want to hear about how we handled our film festival strategy, definitely check out my video on how to get accepted at film festivals. Go into a lot of detail about it there. Finally, we get to the release and the release strategy. So we had a decent film festival run, but once that was coming to an end, we knew it was time to release the film online. And to give it the biggest platform possible, we wanted to give it either a Vimeo staff pick or a short of the week. Unfortunately, we were denied both of those, but our producers connected us to Amaletto, who offered to release the film on their channel. And they had over 1 million subscribers on YouTube at the time. I think they have way more now. We had thought about, should we just put it on our Standard Story channel, because we do have a fair amount of subscribers. It gets a lot of traffic from Bad is Bad. So it would have a fighting chance there too. But ultimately we decided, Amuletto's got over 1 million subscribers. We want this film to have the best chance as possible. We accepted, and to our great delight, it was a star performer on there. It got over 1 million views in the first month, and Amuletto were great partners. We had a deal with them to cut us into the ad revenue. So the film has been making money the entire time it's been on there. And realistically, it was an expensive short film. It's never gonna make all of its budget back from Amuletto ad revenue, but it has made thousands of dollars on there, which was really helpful when Chris and I were trying to pay off the loan we had taken out for the film. And since putting it on Amuletto, we also licensed it to a couple of smaller streaming platforms like Argo and Shot TV, but those were for smaller upfront, like 3-digit licensing fees. So to date, Will the Machine has probably made back somewhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of its budget, but that was never the goal. The goal was to have a calling card that I could use to attach better talent and more financing to my next big film project. And in that sense, I think the film was a great success. So that's how I made my most successful short film. Check out this video to see how I made my most successful feature film. We got over 6 million views and made a good profit. And sorry for the lack of videos lately, guys. I got busy and carried away writing the first draft of this script. Might talk about this a little bit in the future. And subscribe, because more will come, but not if nobody gives a shit. And that's just how the world works. I got things to do.